Okay, so it's been a few days since the semifinals. We have our national championship set. It will be Ohio State versus Notre Dame, number 8 Ohio State versus number 7 Notre Dame on Monday the 20th. Quickly want to start by talking a little bit about the Notre Dame Penn State game. Hats off to the Irish for getting it done. I did think they were going to win this game. I did predict them to win the game. It was a close line. It was a point and a half. I did choose the Irish to win, but I thought watching the game that felt like Penn State was a slightly better team. They did, have the chance to go down and win by a field goal, which I thought would have been fitting, I guess. But then, Aller throws the pick. Penn State really is a solid team. They're just limited tremendously by the fact that they don't have any wide receivers. And Aller didn't complete a single pass to a wide receiver in this game. They did kind of dominate the line of scrimmage, at least as far as the rushing numbers go. They averaged 4.9 yards per carry to 2.8 for Notre Dame. Abdul Carter and Denied Dennis Sutton really were dominant in this game. They came up with 5 sacks to Notre Dame's 1. So, again, I thought Penn State kind of dominated the line of scrimmage. Big, costly mistake there at the end. Notre Dame probably outplayed Penn State in the second half of the game. Hats off to them. Riley Leonard, decent game, not a great game. I thought, when his backup came in after he got hurt for a little while, I thought the backup looked pretty good. But Jeremiah Love had that one really nice touchdown run as well. But, yeah, was that turnover that really turned the momentum of this game and gave it away for Penn State. We go look at the end of the game here. Notre Dame throws a pick. Penn State gets a touchdown off of it. About 8 minutes to go. Then Notre Dame, they are able to answer with a touchdown of their own. That 54-yard pass to Jaden Greathouse, which was pretty wild series of events. Penn State gets the ball back here. And I believe there was a point where, 4th and 3 at the 32. I thought there was a point where I thought they should have gone for it, but they didn't. But, you force a Notre Dame punt. You get the ball back with about 38 seconds to go, and 2 plays in, Drew Aller throws an interception. Notre Dame just took it right down and kicked the game-winning field goal. And I thought Penn State could have won this game, obviously. Again, really hindered by their lack of receiving weapons. It's really just Tyler Warren and the running backs. You need receivers, and Penn State doesn't have any of them. Could have used a guy like Parker Washington or some of the guys they've had in the past. It's not like Penn State can't recruit receivers. They've had good receivers in the past. Chris Godwin going further back. Keandre Lambert-Smith, who I believe transferred to Auburn, if I'm not mistaken. But, you look at the numbers. Notre Dame had more first downs, way better on third down here, did outgain Penn State by about 44 yards. But Penn State really did a great job running the ball in this game. And Notre Dame won the game, even being, a turnover, in the turnover margin. Oh, in fact, Penn State was a 1.5 favorite, I guess, by the time the game kicked off. So I did still pick Notre Dame to win. I thought it was more of like a conviction play, just kind of a gut read. I thought Notre Dame was going to win the game. But now we're set up for a national championship game against Ohio State. And currently, my power ratings have Ohio State as an 8-point favorite. Ohio State has the edge in most of the categories. Number 2 ranked rushing defense, although Notre Dame is number 4 running the ball. Penn State was able to hold them to an inefficient number on the ground, 2.8 yards per carry. Ohio State's rushing offense, 29th. Notre Dame's 28th, so it's about a wash there. Notre Dame throwing the ball, not very good. Ohio State really solid against the pass. This Ohio State's passing offense against Notre Dame, 5 versus 3, kind of a wash there. Slight edge to Notre Dame, maybe. Yards per play, Ohio State, both offensively and defensively, has the edge. So there's a reason Ohio State is favored by 8 points in this game. By my numbers, I believe the Vegas number on this game is 7.5 now. Okay, it's 8, so it's exactly 8. It opened at 9.5 Ohio State, and it's come down some. Without getting too far into it, I do like Ohio State to win. Not sure about covering the 8.5. I mean, I could see Ohio State winning in a blowout if they're just really locked in and playing their best ball. But if Notre Dame's defense is able to slow them down, then maybe Notre Dame could make it a closer kind of game. With that said, we'll go ahead and move on to the Ohio State Texas game, which was on Friday night. And yeah, this game was one of those true heavyweight bouts. You maybe will get, 2 to 3 of these games a year, and that was one of them. Those games that just feel like NFL games where talent truly just about equal, and it really just comes down to execution, scheme, and pure will to win. So that's what we were treated to on Friday. Because usually, college football is it's just a matter of which team has more NFL talent. But in games like this, I mean, you're going to look back on this game, and we're going to look back on this game in 5 to 6 years, and just we'll gain an even greater appreciation for it, because we'll see how many players on both of these teams are going to be playing in the NFL. It's one of those big time heavyweight matchups. And again, very rare to get treated to these. Sometimes we go an entire season without even seeing one of them. But we did get this one. Going into the game, I felt like it was the true national championship. Obviously, that remains to be seen. I don't feel quite as strongly. In other words, I think Notre Dame has a better shot against Ohio State than I did before this game. But again, all that remains to be seen. We're going to focus more on this particular game here, but is a really good team, Texas, and I'll talk more about Texas in a little bit. But that defense, loaded, absolutely loaded unit, really tough. But as for Ohio State, they never trailed in the game. They were tied up a couple times, but never once trailed. If we play the kind of the coulda, woulda, shoulda game, I think probably I would say Ohio State could have won this game by more. In the first half, there was a lot of bounces and breaks that didn't go Ohio State's way. There were 2 moments where Texas fumbled the ball pretty deep in their own territory. One was on a punt return. The other was on a sack where Ewers got strip sacked and they were able to recover it. Where's this one at here? Yeah, okay, here we go. Early second quarter, Quinn Ewers sacked by Sonny Styles, fumbled, recovered by Texas at the Texas 14. That could have been 14-0 early in the game. And again, that punt return that Silas Bolden recovered, it basically just bounced out of his hands and into his own. It just bounced off the ground and right back into his own hands. That was at the Texas 25 late in the first quarter. So couple of golden opportunities there for Ohio State to really take a commanding lead early in that game. Just didn't really go their way. But then again, if you look at the scoop and score from the end of the game, that's almost like getting one of those back. So I do think that the score was pretty close to what it could have, would have, should have been. Maybe it could have been like 31-14 Ohio State if another one of those fumbles early in the, or if even just one of those fumbles in the game had gone their way. Ohio State also really was getting killed by the penalties. They did have 9 for 75. A lot of drive killers in there. Pull up some of these. The drive chart here. This one right here. 2nd and 9 at the Ohio State, or at the Texas 37. This is late in the first quarter. Travion Henderson, I don't know what the guy said to him, but Travion Henderson went up and kind of shoved the dude, gets called for unsportsmanlike conduct. You're back to 2nd and 24, which is essentially going to be a drive killer against a team like Texas. Trying to see if there are. So, yeah, I mean, your third drive here, you commit a holding penalty. Takes you back from the 46 to 36. You're at a 2nd and 20. Drive killer there. Holding penalty on the next drive. 2nd and 20. False start penalty. I mean, lots and lots of killer penalties here. That one was caused by a sack there. And then, you get to late first half. Texas goes on that 7-play, 59-yard touchdown drive. They score on the wheel route to Blue. And then Ohio State gets the ball with 13 seconds left, or 29 seconds left. Travion Henderson takes a screen pass 75 yards to the house. I mean, that was like just a gift from the heavens there for Ohio State. Just a really, really fun, really dramatic back and forth game. I really want to give Texas a lot of credit for hanging around in the game. And kind of makes me wonder how Georgia was able to beat Texas twice. Because we didn't see an effort like this from Georgia in the playoffs against Notre Dame. And again, backup quarterbacks in, so take it with a bit of a grain of salt there. But Georgia was able to beat Texas with their backup quarterback. So as far as the numbers go here, Ohio State, actually Texas was a little bit better on they were both about 30% on third down. Texas a little bit better, 2 more first downs. Ohio State had more yardage. Pretty similar numbers through the air for these two teams. Ohio State didn't really run the ball well. 81 carries on 24 attempts for 3.84 yards per carries, but Texas 58 yards on 29 carries. Really, really rough sledding on the ground there for Texas, and it's kind of been a theme that we've seen with Texas throughout this season. Inability to run the ball in big moments. Really good outing here by Will Howard. Pretty similar numbers to what Quinn Ewers put up. Will Howard definitely put up some slightly better numbers, though. Rushing the ball, Travion Henderson, 42 rush yards and 75 receiving yards. Really solid game for him. Quinshad Judkins didn't have huge numbers, but he did play a really nice game with a couple of touchdowns and threw some very nice blocks. Texas really wasn't able to get much going on the ground there. Receiving, Blue was Texas's leading receiver, whereas Ohio State, Texas really did a super good job of taking Jeremiah Smith out of the game, basically limiting him to 1 catch for 3 yards. Emeka Buka, kind of had a pretty, pedestrian effort, I guess I would say. Not bad, but decent, and really just kind of open up the door for Carnell Tate to have a huge day. 7 catches, 87 yards. He did drop a guaranteed touchdown, just a pure straight drop that Ohio State would eventually score on and a few plays later. But, just Carnell Tate's numbers would have looked even better if he had been able to haul that one in. But, that's the benefit of having multiple 5-star elite first-round receiver prospects on your roster if you're Ohio State. They take away your superstar, and they're doing a good job of limiting Emeka Egbuka. Doesn't matter. We've got another guy that we can run out there as well and throw the ball to with confidence. Carnell Tate. Pretty good job by Ohio State of holding these Texas receivers and tight ends in check. I mean, Texas completed 23 passes, and 11 of them were to running backs. So, really, really good job there by Ohio State. Matthew Golden, really solid receiver, a guy I really like. 2 catches, 51 yards. Gunnar Helm, really solid tight end, 2 catches, 42 yards. So, Ohio State cornerbacks did a really, really solid job against these Texas pass catchers. Defensively, Ohio State had 4 sacks to Texas's 2. JT Tuimoloau had 1.5 sacks. Sonny Siles had a sack. Ty Hamilton was credited with a sack, and Jack Sawyer obviously had the big one. 9 tackles for loss to 4 for Texas. I thought Texas acquitted themselves really, really good in this game, but I just think Ohio State's the best team in the country, and I've had them in the power ratings, Ohio State as the best team in the country. Texas has been in that top 3. Right now they're like fractionally behind Penn State after those 2 games this weekend. But yeah, both really, really solid teams. I think Ohio State was just better, and I think that's what you saw on Friday night. Texas, they found a way to stay in this game despite only having really 3 good drives out of basically 11, and one of them ended with the scoop and score, the scoop and Sawyer. Before the game, coming off the Oregon game and looking ahead at this one, I said it would be a lot tougher for Ohio State to score. This would be the toughest defense they've faced in the postseason run. I think that was true. I also said that I thought Texas would struggle to score more than 20 points. That was true as well. Their offense just doesn't really have a ton of juice despite all that talent they have. Again, can't run the ball, and we'll get into it a little more later, but probably at least partly a function of, they lost their starting running back, C.J. Baxter, to an ACL tear. Before the season even started, their second-string running back went down with an ACL tear. My prediction for the game was that Ohio State would win and cover the 5.5-point line. I think it moved up to 6 on game day, and I was cool with that. I said that, Ohio State would win by at least a touchdown or more. I predicted, best case scenario for Ohio State, 34-20, which is a 14-point win. Worst, I guess not worst case scenario, but between a 10 and 14-point win for Ohio State. They ended up winning by 14. Could have been less without the scoop and score. But yeah, it was a game that came down to the very end. The final 2 minutes. It's exactly what you want. It's exactly what you want in a playoff game. And it's one of those games that you're not going to forget for a long time. Red zone defense for Ohio State continues to make miracles happen. Sometimes it starts to feel when you make a stop like that on the goal line, it starts to feel like it's lucky or fluky. But they've done it so many times. They did it against Penn State twice. They did it against Michigan. They did it against Oregon. They did it against Nebraska. At a certain point, you do it enough times, it's not an accident. That's really something that they are very good at is these goal line stands. Offensively, I did not think Ohio State was looking very good in the third quarter. You start off the quarter with a pick. Will Howard tries to force the ball to Jeremiah Smith. Didn't love that decision. A few 3-and-outs in a row. It started to feel like the Ohio State defense was getting tired out, and Texas was starting to gain some momentum. Texas would go on a 12-play, 67-yard touchdown drive, take away most of the third quarter here from the 8:30 mark down to the 3:12 mark. They tie the game up. Ohio State answers that with a punt. Texas punts again, another 3-and-out for them. And then the most crucial drive of the game was this 13-play, 88-yard, 7-minute and 45-second touchdown drive for Ohio State. Not only do you take the lead again, go up 21-14, but you give your defense basically 8 minutes of game time to rest. And I thought that drive was just spectacular. 13 plays. You converting 1 third down. Let's see here. 2 third down. Actually, you get a false start. So you get back to 3rd and 9. You convert a 3rd down. You convert a 4th down. And you punch it in for a touchdown. There's a play here where Will Howard completes his pass to G. Scott for 7 yards. We kind of fought forward for an extra 3 to 4 yards. And I thought that was really dynamite by him because it did set up a 4th and 2, which they were able to pull out the quarterback sneak on. And Will Howard was pretty much just green grass in front of him to the end zone. He got to the line. Great job blocking by the Ohio State line there. But he just tripped over his own feet. And it was at the 9:45 mark and ended up being beneficial to Ohio State because it took the clock down to the 7-minute mark as opposed to scoring at about the 9:40 mark. So you're able to run about 2 minutes and 40 seconds more off the clock there. Give your defense even more time to rest up. And I think it was probably crucial on that goal line stand, which was the very next drive for Texas. And, Ohio State defense maybe, get a little more rest, get a little more air in your lungs, come out with a little more energy on the next drive. And you're able to, make that goal line stand and put the game away. It's, a lot of the Ohio State fan base. This game was big for Ohio State, for Ryan Day, for a number of reasons other than, just playing an elite SEC team deep in the playoffs. Just, another big game win for Ryan Day. I don't know. It seems like a lot of the Ohio State fan base is back in on Ryan Day and all's forgiven. But I'm telling you, all conditional on the fact that this team continues winning. If Ryan Day had gone down to Texas and lost the game and the season to Quinn Ewers, guy who obviously was originally at Ohio State before transferring to Texas, that it would have been really, really ugly. It would have gone right back to where things were after the Michigan game. It would have been, Ryan Day hoisted by his own petard, had this guy in the building, let him get away. Quinn should have been the quarterback at Ohio State. This is all on Ryan Day for letting Quinn leave. Whether Quinn transferred because he probably shouldn't have reclassified as a junior in high school. a little bit homesick. Maybe I personally don't think reclassifying is a good idea in general. I think guys should play out their senior year, and the reclassifying thing, from what I've seen, hasn't really worked out all that well. Maybe Ryan Day, a lot of the people on Buckeye Twitter think that Ryan Day basically chose Kyle McCord over Quinn Ewers. Whether it's true or not, people believe it. And if Day had lost to Quinn Ewers, and that's how this season would have ended for them, it would have been just maybe the final and ultimate humiliation for Ryan Day. You got this dream season, you got Second Life, all the seniors are back. You've basically pushed all your chips in to the center of the table. Everybody's jobs are on the line, and you lose to the guy that you had in the building and let him end your season, go on, potentially win a national championship game. All that was on the line here, so there was a lot of pressure. But instead, it's Jack Sawyer, roommates with Quinn Ewers during Quinn's brief stint at Ohio State. Jack Sawyer, the very first recruit to ever commit to play football for Ryan Day at Ohio State, from Central Ohio, dreaming of being a Buckeye and doing something like that his whole life. Strip sacks Ewers, 4th and goal, takes it back for a touchdown. It really felt like it was shaping up to be a game that Ohio State loses in typical Ryan Day fashion. Can't close a deal, maximum heartbreak, maximum devastation, find a way to lose on the biggest stage. Instead, the opposite happens. You find a way to win on the biggest stage. And, yeah, it just feels like things are different for Ohio State now. Pretty confident that Ohio State will beat Notre Dame and seal the deal with the national championship on January 20th. Notre Dame's pretty banged up team, but more than that, I think Ohio State's a better team overall. And I just think that this team is really just on a mission and won't be denied. Not going to be a pushover. Notre Dame's not going to just be some cakewalk game that you win 45-3. But I just think what Ohio State did against Texas, I think that was harder than what they're going to be asked to do against Notre Dame. And I think this is not being talked about enough, but I mean, you had to go to Dallas to win this game. I mean, you had to go to Texas to play Texas. That was a virtual home game for Texas. And I mean, so you had to go into the belly of the beast here. And again, I don't think enough people are because it's a bowl game, it's a neutral site, and Ohio State probably had more fans in attendance than they would have if it had been played at in Austin. This is a 1,000-mile drive from Columbus. It's a 3-hour drive from Austin to Arlington. So this is why I thought it would be the toughest test of the playoffs for Ohio State. You have Tennessee at home, Oregon, fairly neutral site, a bit closer to Oregon, but you just overall were a better team than Oregon. Texas was, of all the teams that are going to play in the playoff this year, probably any other team in the country, probably the only two, the one team that is close to Ohio State talent-wise. Again, I don't think anybody is on Ohio State's level in terms of roster talent, but Texas is probably the closest. And you beat them on their turf, which huge accomplishment. Now I want to say a little bit about Texas. Steve Sarkisian, really like him as a coach. I said in my last video where I predicted Ohio State to win, I didn't think Stark was a killer. Maybe that's why his team felt like it was underachieving relative to its talent level. Not sure about that, but I think Texas is a really, really good team, really good program. Last year's team felt a little more dynamic on offense. This one definitely felt a lot better on defense, though, particularly in the secondary. This Texas defense was basically just stacked at all three levels. But again, I do feel like Sark is really close to breaking through. I think they'll win a national championship in the next few years under Sark. I really believe that. You got Arch Manning, coming in next year. For whatever reason, Georgia had their number, Texas's number this year, but statistically all season long, Texas was a better football team than Georgia. The issue for Texas has been struggling to run the football in big matchups all year, and I think that ended up being this team's Achilles heel this year. We went over it earlier, 58 yards, 29 carries against Ohio State. In their first meeting with Georgia in Austin, they had 29 yards on 27 carries, just abysmal, 1.1 yards a carry. Second time around against Georgia in the SEC championship game, 31 yards, 28 carries, 1.1 yards per carry again. Against Arizona State, 53 yards on 30 carries, 1.8 yards per carry, and again, 2 yards per carry against Ohio State. I think it goes back to losing your top 2 running backs before the season started. C.J. Baxter, knee injury. Christian Clark, Achilles tear during training camp. Jaden Blue is a really solid player, but, I mean, at the end of the day, the guy, he was expected to be their third-string running back. And Wisner was supposed to be the fourth string. And you come into the season decimated at the running back position, and it showed up in the biggest games. Obviously, not all of that is on the running backs. Part of it's on the offensive line, but, I mean, I think you can't have this conversation without talking about the 2 players that Texas lost at the running back position, their top 2 running backs, before the season even started. And yeah, I mean, ever since Bijan Robinson left a couple of years ago, they've had basically chaos at the running back position. Last year, Jonathan Brooks, he played for a lot of the season, but did tear his ACL pretty late in the season. They went into the playoffs without him. And Sark, he's recruiting at a national championship level. I think they'll get a Natty under him. You got Arch Manning coming in next year. And the cool thing is Texas is going to actually open up next season playing against Ohio State and Columbus. So their next game will be against Ohio State as well. So 2 consecutive games against Ohio State. The next one, so they'll go up to Columbus on August 30th. Obviously, Ohio State's going to be replacing a lot of the players from this year's team. Texas will as well. So if Texas is going to break through and win a Natty, really kind of a nice way to start that out with a chance to have a revenge tour starting at Ohio State. And they also go to Georgia later in the year, but kind of getting ahead of myself. But overall, really, really impressed with Texas because I think this Ohio State team is the best team in the country, and Texas hung right there with them for most of that game. And I think just, in the end, you just saw that Ohio State was deeper, more talented, more experienced, and not by a wide margin, but by enough to get the job done. And, ended up being a real treat of a game for everybody. But so that's going to do it on the recap of those 2 games. We've, again, Ohio State taking on Notre Dame in the national championship game. I do have Ohio State as an 8-point favorite over Notre Dame, and I do see Ohio State winning the game. Probably somewhere in the, I want to say like a 30-20, 34-24, that kind of margin. I really think Notre Dame, 24 would be really pushing it for Notre Dame. I do think it's going to be tough for them to break more than 20 points against Ohio State. But I also don't see Ohio State running away on offense. They're not going to do what they did to Oregon, to Notre Dame. It's going to be, Ohio State probably going to be in the 27-34 range. Notre Dame going to be in like the 14-23 range, I would say. So chance it could be a 27-23 game. Also a chance it could be a 34-14 game. Just depending on turnovers, things like that. Obviously injuries, if Will Howard or knock on wood, right, somebody gets hurt, one of the team's quarterbacks gets hurt, obviously that changes the whole equation of the game. But I do like Ohio State to win and get the job done. But anything can happen. That's going to do it for this video. I may come out with another video getting a little deeper into the national championship game and putting a final concrete score prediction on paper here. But that's going to do it. Leave a like on the video and subscribe for more college football deep dive.